Major is with us now from our Washington bureau. Major, let's talk about this delegate race more broadly. Where does the Colorado loss leave Donald Trump?
Well, it's a setback for Trump, but it's an expected setback. His campaign had no expectations whatsoever they would get any delegates out of the Colorado process. Internally, the Trump campaign concedes that this process in Colorado, caucuses in congressional districts leading up to a state convention, began long ago, and the Trump campaign was simply not organized in any way, shape, or form to compete at the congressional district level or at the state convention level. And that played out precisely as they predicted, sorrowfully for their terms, this weekend. All 34 delegates went to Ted Cruz or to the Ted Cruz column. So it doesn't make it impossible for Donald Trump to claim this nomination outright by winning future primaries. He still is the only Republican with a clear and visible path toward that magic number of 1237. But in the larger context of battling for delegates one by one, it continues this narrative that the Cruz campaign is built for the better part of 2 weeks, that its ground game is superior to Trump's, and Trump is really getting into this ground game far too late to make a practical difference. So for the Trump campaign, Elaine, there is one imperative and one imperative only: win the nomination outright. So there isn't a second or third or fourth ballot at the convention in July, and all this talk of a contested convention disappears. That's a tall hurdle, but it begins next Tuesday in New York, where the Trump campaign hopes to claim all 95 delegates up for grabs.
Major, let's talk about this AP poll out Monday. When asked which candidate would make America great, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump 33-28. But on more traditional issues like immigration, the economy, and national security, Clinton also beats Trump. So what does that tell us?
Well, it tells us that voters, to a certain degree, when asked about general election questions and asked to compare and contrast Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, are giving a slight advantage to Hillary Clinton. But I must tell you, Elaine, I don't think that kind of polling data is any sort of data that the Trump campaign or the Clinton campaign are going to take to the bank. We're far too away from a general election. We don't know how long the Democratic primary and caucus process is going to play out and how it's ultimately going to land. The same is true of the Republican process. So that polling data is interesting. It is revealing that Hillary Clinton retains strength on issues and strength vis-a-vis Trump. But I would not say that's polling data that is reflective of where the country's going to be, the electorate's going to be, or this debate is going to be come November.
Let's turn to Paul Ryan. He is going to great lengths to say he's not running for president, but he's launched what the New York Times is calling a mirage candidacy. What do you think his role is, Major, in this election?
Well, let's break it down, things we can actually measure and put a label on. So Paul Ryan is the Speaker of the House, which makes him a very powerful National Republican Party figure. Fact one. Fact two. He is the honorary chairman of the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, which puts him in a largely and historically ceremonial position, but he still has the gavel, which means he can gavel in or out challenges to anything that comes from the floor, or he can be present if there is a contested convention and there is something for the chair to rule upon. Paul Ryan would carry that gavel and all the power that comes with it. And if it's a contested convention that exhausts itself, meaning Trump can't get 1237, Cruz can't get 1237, John Kasich can't get 1237, that's the number of delegates required to win the nomination, then maybe the convention looks for a white knight or someone who hasn't run the primary and caucus process who could be a unifying alternative. Many people, myself included, came to the conclusion when Paul Ryan reluctantly accepted the speakership way back several months ago that one of the things he was eyeing was a possible scenario of the kind I just laid out, where he becomes the acceptable unifying alternative in a contested convention world, where no one other than he can assume the leadership of the party, bring it together, and on a raucous convention floor, cobble together 1,237 delegates. Now, many things have to happen before that is anywhere close to being a reality. But many people looking at this process for Speaker Ryan, his identification of issues within the House Republican Conference, his regular appearances in the media, even his willingness to contest some of the things that Donald Trump has said on the campaign trail, are positioning him for that possibility. A lot of times in politics, to make something real, You have to look at a potential and position yourself to be ready for it. Many believe Paul Ryan, though not a candidate, and though when asked, repeatedly says he's not interested and won't be a candidate, is nevertheless positioning himself just in case.
Major, before I let you go, we learned Monday that Donald Trump has not secured the support, the votes rather, of two staunch supporters in the New York primary, his kids, Eric and Ivanka. Can you just explain what happened? Why aren't they voting for their dad?
They didn't register in time. There is a time limit in New York, as there is in most states, to qualify to be a registered voter and to participate in a primary. Now, some states have day of registry. New York is not one of them. New York has more fastidious rules about when you have to register to participate as a voter and be on the rolls come primary day. Eric and Ivanka didn't do that in time, so though they are clearly supportive of Donald Trump, and I will tell you, increasingly powerful advisors within the Trump inner circle about what to do and not to do. I can tell you, Eric and Ivanka were of the mind that there needed to be a shakeup in the management of the Trump campaign. That's why Paul Manafort won more than he lost in that internal power struggle with campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. Eric and Ivanka are influential and important voices in all of these conversations, so they still retain power, influence, and they're very close to their father. But that closeness does not necessarily translate to 2 votes in the New York primary. Trump probably won't need them, but he joked today, no more allowance for Eric and Ivanka.
All right. Major Garrett in Washington for us. Major, thank you so much.
Sure.